Hello, and welcome to the final presentation for Team Tardis. We have been developing a prototype application to help secondary school students learn history and geography. We have two major goals. The first is to use a familiar and intuitive user interface to show historical events in a geographical framework. Our application is based on Google Maps, so the look and feel should be familiar to most users. However, there are some important additions. The slider at the bottom shows the range of years that are currently being viewed. Right now we're just looking at 1780. As I advance the end date to 1787, U.S. state borders begin to appear based on the date each state was admitted to the Union. In 1863, the state of West Virginia split off from Virginia. You can see the new borders and also a yellow pin. The pin represents an event, an important happening that's tied to a time and place. In this case, the pin is located in the city of Wheeling, where conventions were held to decide on the split. When I click on the pin, I get some information about the event. Note that these pop-up descriptions can contain text, images, audio, and video. Advancing our end date to 1963 shows all 50 states. Our application also allows string-based filtering of objects shown on the map. In the upper left, I'll filter for the string Virginia and select it. And now we see only Virginia, West Virginia, and the event that mentions both states. And now I'll clear the filter. Next, let's talk about contributions. Contributions are collections of objects that appear on the map, such as borders and events. They are the basic tools for organizing data, so that you can choose the data that you want to see at any given time. I'll access the main menu by clicking on the user portrait in the upper right. On the left here, you can see that there's a section titled My Contributions, in which we can select the contributions that we'd like to use. Right now, we're using only the default contribution, which is the only contribution selected the first time you run the application. I'll select a second contribution, the one titled The Texas Revolution. As you can see, there are now new events on the map, corresponding to several battles in the Texas War of Independence from Mexico. An example is here, the Battle of Goliad. You can also see some blue pins. These correspond to important people. Pins appear at the locations of each person's birth and death. For example, in Georgia, we can see the birthplace of William Travis, who commanded the Texan Army at the Alamo. We're not happy with this method of displaying historical people. We'll discuss this at the end of the presentation. Finally, let's talk a little about classrooms. A classroom object is made of a list of students and a list of contributions. It allows a teacher to set up the contributions that will be used for a particular class and specify the students who are allowed to use that classroom. Going back to the main menu, at the bottom we can see a section entitled My Classrooms, with a single classroom entitled Brad's First Classroom. That classroom includes the default contribution and another contribution entitled The Civil War. By selecting it, we enter the classroom and enable the contributions within it. You can now see a number of new events from the Civil War contribution. I'll move the date slider back to 1860, right before the war began, and then slowly advance it to 1865, when the war ended. We can see new events popping up as time advances. The new events are important Civil War battles. For example, the Battle of Shiloh in western Tennessee. I'll leave the classroom now for the next part of the demonstration. What I've presented so far is a general framework for showing historical data in a geographical context, which was our first goal. Now let's take a look at our second goal. Our second goal is to allow teachers and students to add content to the application. We call this authoring. We want to allow teachers to add local or obscure information that's relevant to the lessons they want to teach. More importantly, we want to give students the opportunity to learn by doing. That is, by performing their own research and presenting their results as new application content, which we believe will be more meaningful and engaging than writing the traditional 5-page double-spaced paper. First, let's create a new contribution. In the main menu, I'll select Contributions. This page shows me the contributions that I have created and can therefore edit. I'll create a new one. Let's call it Best Contribution Ever. I'll make it public so that every user can have read-only access to it. And we'll save that. Now let's add an event to the new contribution. In the main menu, first I'll enable the new contribution. Now I'll go back to the map page, and I'll hit the Add button at the upper right. Now I need to click on the location of the new event. First we'll pick our new contribution. Here we can see we could add an event or a border or a person. We'll do an event today. And our new event is indeed a very important one, especially for the purposes of this presentation. And this is roughly the location of Austin. If I wanted to, I could be more precise, but I think this will do. And now we have a new event showing up as a yellow pin. If I exclude 1963, which is when the event happened, from the range of dates, the event vanishes. Now we're looking at 1963 again. But note, if I disable our new contribution, the event also vanishes because the application shows only the objects that belong to the contributions that are enabled. I'm finished adding events for now, so I'll click on Finish. And now that event is part of the database. Let's create another classroom. I'll select Classrooms from the main menu. Here we can see my one classroom entitled Brad's First Classroom. I can edit it by clicking on the pencil icon. I'll change the name just a little bit. Save that. Now I'll create a new one. We'll call this Brad's Second Classroom. Let's see, we'll give it just one student, my teammate Haifang. And for contributions, we'll use the default contribution, which gives us our state borders. And we'll also do the Texas Revolution contribution. Okay, now we've set up a second classroom. Let's go back to the map page. And let's switch into our new classroom. Enable both contributions, and now we're looking at a different set of events, the ones associated with the Texas Revolution. We have another way to add content that I'm not going to demonstrate because of time constraints. It's a Python script that can take events from a spreadsheet as a CSV file and add them to any contribution. This will allow large-scale importation of content from external sources. Finally, a few words on our overall results. We're proud of what we accomplished here. We think this application, though still a prototype, provides a solid foundation for future development. It's an effective proof of concept and can be used to engage teachers in discussions of how it could be used and what changes and new features they'd like to see. We even have a good start on content creation tools, both in the application and as separate scripts. However, as always, not everything turned out perfectly. We clearly need a lot more content, both to make the app more compelling and to work out ways to avoid overwhelming the user when lots of data is available. We're also not happy with our current solution for historical people. The pins at birth and death locations are confusing. We believe that a better way to do this would be to link people to events, with possibly a separate view for people that were active within a certain range of locations and dates. Finally, we have no online help, or in fact documentation of any sort. The possibilities for future development are endless. Better methods for obtaining content are one interesting area. Does anyone want to write a script that crawls Wikipedia starting at some page and generates events, locations, and people for our app? Please let us know if so. We could also further develop contributions and especially classrooms. As said before, we want to rework the presentation of historical people. Most importantly, we'd like to begin some user testing. First, as more open-ended discussions with teachers, and later getting students involved to learn how to make this an effective educational tool. If you'd like to try our application, please visit the website shown at the link here. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching. And if you have feedback or suggestions, please contact us.